Good evening, and welcome to the historic coverage from the original Black press of the 2020 election, the most consequential election in American history. Tonight is the beginning of America's future. Already, more than 100 million people have voted, and it's expected that voter turnout will shatter all previous records by a wide margin. For those who want to, quote, make America great again, the hopes is that a coalition led by President Trump and supported by most Republicans can steal the vote now that it appears it can't be suppressed enough. For those who want the U.S. to regain its democracy and standing as the leader of the free world, a repeat of 2016 just cannot happen. Think about this. Trailing in the polls, Trump faces the very real prospect of swapping the White House for the big house. He's directly implicated in campaign finance crimes and is under investigation by both Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance and New York State Attorney General Letitia James for alleged fraud in his business dealings. And on top of that, he faces civil defamation lawsuits from women accusing him of sexual assault. He needs to win to stay out of prison. And that is really the bottom line for President Trump. So everything is on the line. And because when was the last time we could count on mainstream media outlets to bring to our community news that reflects the pulse of the Black community? The Black press of America, for the first time in its 193-year history and the first time in the 80-year history of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, are bringing you a live wall-to-wall broadcast of the 2020 election. You will see and hear from Black publishers of Black-owned newspapers and media companies in all the battleground and swing states, and from just about every corner in America, from Seattle and Portland down to Los Angeles and San Diego, across Oklahoma, and the biggest intrigues that are Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin. We are there, and we have publishers and also lawmakers who will join us. Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax will check in. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence of Michigan will also, and so will Danny K. Davis, the congressman out of Illinois, Texas Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, NAACP President Derek Johnson, and so many others. All of that is thanks to our national chair and Houston Forward-Times publisher Karen Carter Richards and our president and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis, whom we welcome right now. National chair and Houston Forward-Times publisher Karen Carter Richards and our president and CEO right now.
Well, thank you so much. I will yield to our illustrious, the distinguished publisher of the Houston Forward-Times, Karen Carter Richards. Thank you so much.
I got a little feedback over here. It's double it up.
Karen Carter Richards.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
I got a little feedback over here. It's double it up.
Yeah, Norma, for some reason, the broadcast is repeating itself. So Karen, I'll wait till our technical people straighten out the sound.
Yeah. So in the meantime, the polls have opened, obviously, or closed, I should say. Some polls have closed, and many have cast their vote. We are seeing early results from real early voting. Nothing to be excited about. In Kentucky, for instance, I'm looking right now. Trump is at 50% and Biden's at 48%, which is really amazing for Kentucky because Kentucky is dead red, and it always has been. So that's a close one so far tonight, but we're going to be watching it all. So let's now try and bring in our distinguished chair, Karen Carter Richards.
Right. Each of us, Karen, make sure your other device is off.
Everything's off.
Yeah, all my devices are off also. So Karen, make sure your other devices are off.
They are. Everything's off.
Yeah, all my devices are off. Okay, I think we're straight. Well, yeah, all my devices are off. Norman, I can still hear feedback.
Okay, how are we doing now? You know, the first time at something, you're gonna have some hiccups, and that's what we're experiencing right now, unfortunately. But we'll get through it. We'll work through it.
Well, your audio is fine, Stacy, but when I yield to our chair, and my voice is being repeated also. But I think we've probably solved it. Karen, you want to go forward now to see if it works okay?
Nice.
But I think we've probably solved it. Karen, you want to go forward now to see if it works okay?
No, I still hear double feedback, but
yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I think we need to wait because it can't understand what Stacy's saying.
Okay, so Dr. Chavis, perhaps what we'll do is we'll throw it over to you, and then we can get our chair back later in the broadcast. Maybe you can speak for both of you to start this off. Apparently, it seems like our chair's your speaker is something with your speaker. Is what Norman is saying. So, Dr. Chavis, you want to give some thoughts on tonight?
Well, yes, and I certainly hope we can first of all, I'm so proud of the Black press of America. We have done an extraordinary work during this pandemic, leading up to the most consequential election in our lifetime. And under the leadership of Karen Carter Richards, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, I'm pleased to report to you, we've stayed open during the pandemic. We've had some of our largest ad sales ever during the pandemic. And now tonight, I'm pleased to report that we're hearing from our member publishers from the West Coast to the East Coast, the North and the South, and they're all reporting record turnouts of Black Americans to vote. That is good news for Black America. That's good news for America. And so Stacy and Norman and Claudette, to all the staff, I want to thank all of you for putting this program together, this live program. And I would like to thank Karen Carter Richards, our chair, all the members of the executive committee of the NPA, as well as the member of the board of directors of the NPA, and all of our 230 member publishers across America, many of whom you're going to hear from tonight on our special broadcast. We know that the polls in the East are closing now, just closed. The polls in the West Coast are still open. So people are still voting as we begin our live coverage tonight, Stacy. But I just want to say, in the 193rd year of the Black Press of America, this is what we do. We report the news. We are an advocate of freedom, justice, and equality. What was said on that first page of Freedom's Journal 193 years ago is that, we have to speak for ourselves. We have to plead our own cause. And that's what the Black press is doing in 2020. So I just want to now say on behalf of all of our publishers, thank you all for listening. And not only we have publishers listening in, but we have our readers. I'm getting texts and tweets and Instagram and Facebook posts already where millions of people are tuned in. Again, I'm so proud of the Black press of America, and we're here to serve. We're the trusted voice of Black America. And certainly through all of the antics with voter suppression, through all of the terrible incidents of police brutality that we've experienced this year, and the devastating negative impact of the coronavirus on Black America, yet God answers prayers. Our people are resilient. Resilience is in our DNA. And we have people standing in line today for hours and hours and hours. Of that 100 million that voted early, many were African American and also voted early. So I won't be long-winded. I hope that we've worked out the technical so we can hear from our chair, and I will pass to her, Karen Carter Richards, the chair of the NMPA and the publisher of the Houston Forward Times. And I will pass to her, Karen Carter Richards, the chair of the NMPA and the publisher of the Houston Forward Times.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
The chair of the NNPA and the publisher of the Houston Forward Times. So what I would suggest, I'm going to log out and log back in, and Karen, maybe you should log in, out, and log back in too. Hopefully that will straighten it out.
So while they do that, just a preview of first of all, if you see me looking to the side, we're getting constant updates. This is my cell phone, getting constant updates from publishers and reporters from around the country. The Black press is pretty huge, and you'll find out that for yourselves tonight. But coming up at about 7:15, in about 5 minutes, we're going to have a journalist out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And, you know, Scranton has been really a battleground itself. Biden, Trump, even 4 years ago, I should say, it was a big spot for Hillary Clinton, and even prior to her, Barack. Steve Corbett in just a few minutes, and Steve will provide some insight on what's going on in Scranton. And Steve also has authored a book called Trump in Pattystown. He'll straighten us out on the title, but you'll hear more from Steve Corbett. But right now we are rejoined by our distinguished chair, Karen Carter Richards. So how's it going over there?
Hey, Stacy. Hello from Houston. Everything's going great. I can hear you much better now.
Great.
And Stacy, I first of all, let me congratulate our team. You guys have done an excellent job. We having a little hiccups, but we'll straighten it out by the end of the night. We're so excited. This is a very, like you said, a historic night for the Black press of America. I'm so excited we get to showcase our publishers. This is the first time we've been able to collectively cover something real time. And so we're looking forward to our reporters, our editors, to tweet you information and just find out what's going on across the country. And like I said, this is a very historic night for the Black press, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah. We are definitely, and already we are receiving texts and updates. I want to just give you one example of an update that we will be receiving, and this is out of Virginia. And so this is from Bonnie Winston, the managing editor of the Richmond Free Press. She says, this afternoon, many businesses along Broad Street from downtown Richmond through Virginia Commonwealth University area to Arthur Ashe Boulevard started boarding up their front windows and doors in anticipating and protection against any outbreaks of violence in the city following election results. Several shops were damaged in late May during the protests following the death of George Floyd. Richmond police also have closed off parts of Monument Avenue around the 6-story statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, which is an area that became a flashpoint after the George Floyd murder. So that is an update from Bonnie Winston, the managing editor of the Richmond Free Press. We'll be getting them all night. So really, no need to turn to Fox or CNN or MSNBC. Stay right here to the Black press.
Awesome.
Very good. Also, I'm here in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., at the headquarters of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. And Madam Chair, D.C. is also boarded up.
Wow.
And for the first time in the history of America, there's a 2-block, square block area where they've erected a 10-foot fence. The White House has fenced itself in.
I heard that.
For the first time in the history of America.
Wow.
But you know what? You can't fence the will of God out.
That's it.
You can't build a wall. You can build a wall, build a fence, but I think the power of the people, the power of the vote, the power of the liberation struggle of our people for freedom, justice, and equality, we're going to prevail. Yes. So I want people to be hopeful tonight, be prayerful. I know the Black press, we've withstood all kinds of trials and tribulations over the past 193 years. So this is a payback day. This is a voting day. And that's why, and Madam Chair, you there in Houston, where, in Harris County, they tried to do everything they could to keep Black folks from voting.
Right.
But tell us, how was the turnout today? And
the turnout has been phenomenal. Fort Bend County, Harris County, it has been just phenomenal, and it's been exciting to watch all of our young people vote and get their friends. All of my family had voted, but my youngest daughter, she was the last one that came through today, but she got it done, and so we're just excited. We are definitely voting in Houston like our life depends on it, and it's just been just a day. Yeah,
Very
sometimes
good.
you want to just turn. Sometimes you want to turn the news off, but then you can't.
Well, I'm praying that Texas will go blue this time.
Oh, we praying too. We praying real hard. I told Norm to get his map colors right. So yeah.
Well, listen, it's a privilege to have our chair and our president. We're gonna have to move it along. As you know, we're on a tight schedule. So you guys obviously are welcome to come back later in the show at any point, and we will be looking for you. So thanks a lot. And we know that Jeff Boney will be representing the Houston Forward Time. And we probably will be hearing a lot from Houston as the night goes on. So thanks a lot. Thanks for making this happen. And now we're going to bring in the journalist from Scranton, Pennsylvania, Steve Corbett. Steve has been covering politics for a long time. And listen, if anybody has their finger on the pulse, it's Steve. Welcome, Steve.
It's good to see you, Stacy. Are you hearing me loud and clear?
We hear you just fine.
It's good to talk with you. I'm coming live from Scranton, Pennsylvania, the birthplace of Joe Biden. And Joe Biden was in Scranton this morning making a tour of his old homestead, of a hoagie shop where he used to stop by. People crowded the streets to welcome Joe Biden today to Scranton. And yesterday at the airport, the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton International Airport, Kamala Harris landed. Donald Trump landed, and the activity is hot and heavy.
And Steve, it must have been some serious traffic types, because people who don't know, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know how small that airport is.
The airport is small. The Interstate 81 runs between Wilkes-Barre in Luzerne County and Scranton in Lackawanna County. 2 ground zero zones for this election, 20 miles between those two towns. Wilkes-Barre's got about 42,000 people. Scranton's got about 70,000 people. Predominantly Democrats during their history, a place where immigrants came and worked in the coal mines for decades. My grandfather worked as a coal miner in Scranton for 45 years. Now, the immigration issue remains a serious issue, particularly in Luzerne County, the city of Hazleton, where right-wing Representative ex-Congressman Lou Barletta did everything in his power to demonize immigrants, mostly from the Dominican Republic, making them sound like they were from Mexico and that they were coming across the wall with all kinds of problems, when in effect those immigrants shaped what the core of hardcore country, northeastern Pennsylvania, has always been and has to remain.
Yeah, you mentioned Lou Barletta. Lou Barletta, actually, you can say that Donald Trump took from Lou Barletta's playbook when it comes to immigration, because, there was a huge thing in Hazleton some years ago in which Barletta when he was mayor there, he put some restrictions on immigrants. In fact, I mean, his policies was trying to drive all of them out. And before you respond to that, Steve, we have our first projected winner tonight in a state, I should say. Vermont is in. Joe Biden is the projected winner in Vermont. So go ahead, Steve. You can speak very well to Barletta and immigrants.
Those restrictions Lou Barletta hammered on people and their lives were determined to be unconstitutional. He couldn't do it legally. Yet he capitalized on his mean-spirited cruelty to work his way into Congress, where he was a very popular member of Congress among that white male patriarchal boss system that kept people down in northeastern Pennsylvania when they were coming to mine coal from Ireland, like my grandfather, from Italy, from Germany, from Wales, from elsewhere. But now we've got a changing face in Hazleton, in Luzerne County, in Scranton, in Lackawanna County. And what happened in 2016 that put Trump in the White House was that white male patriarchal oppression that came together, and through bigotry, through hatred, through an old boys network that always ruled, they gave us what many people have fought very hard to do away with, which is Donald Trump. I believe what you're seeing in Luzerne County today, where my novel, Patty's Day in Trumptown, is set, is a changing face, literally and figuratively, in many cases led by young people of color, in many, many ways, mostly women, standing up to those good old boys, those white male ethnic characters who never really reached out to help people. Scranton, where I am, in Lackawanna County, a brand new mayor, a woman, the first woman mayor in the history of the city of Scranton, who is progressive, who works with Black people, with brown people, with people of color, with the LGBTQ community, with the people who now shape a progressive aggression, if you will, set in the best sense of the word. That's why an aggressive, strong Black press is as important now as ever before. That's why organizing on the ground level is as important as ever before. And that's happening in Wilkes-Barre and in Scranton. And that's what's so very different about that cruel season of politics that provided the fight that we now, many of us, continue to fight.
Yeah, Steve, and I want you to also talk about Scranton a little bit more, and not just Scranton, but like you said, Lackawanna and Luzerne, hotbed of corruption, right? 10 years ago, about you had petitioners in Lackawanna County go to federal prison for corruption. The mayor of Scranton, the last mayor of Scranton, Bill Courtwright, was just sentenced to 7 years, I believe, in prison for shaking down folks for corruption. And in Luzerne County, perhaps one of the most devious crimes ever committed by two judges, kids for cash. Steve, you're describing a picture that Luzerne and Lackawanna County is changing. Can you kind of briefly give our viewers some insight on all of the corruption there and how it's changing?
I worked as a newspaper columnist in Wilkes-Barre for 17 years. I covered all of these degenerates. The two judges involved in the kids for cash, essentially selling children into prison so they could get their kickbacks and their money. The guy from Lackawanna County who did 11 years as a Lackawanna County commissioner, he just got out. He's out right now. He just posted a Facebook posting today, Bob Cordaro endorsing Donald Trump for the presidency. So that's a guy who just did 11 years in the penitentiary. The former mayor of my city, Scranton, Bill Courtwright, he's sitting in a federal penitentiary right now in Morgantown, West Virginia. The two kids for cash judges, one got sentenced to 28 years. He's probably going to die in prison. The other got sentenced to 17 and a half years. That culture of corruption came through that, I can't say it any stronger, that white male good old boys network that controlled everything and everybody. They never had any challenge. They never had anybody coming to them because so much was at risk. You had family members who worked in government. You had people who were afraid. There was violence. This was a big mafia community at one time. We had big bosses. And now we're seeing a new kind of bravery. We're seeing a young courage being exhibited through politics, through many of those, and I say it again, young women, women of color, people who are willing to step back in to a continuing civil rights movement that takes it to the man, if you will, because the movement has to remain a movement. We're making progress. We'll continue to fight them. And those stories have to be told. Those are the leaders of our community in northeastern Pennsylvania that, with everything dependent on Pennsylvania in this presidential election, might very well be a tipping point in putting Joe Biden in the White House, whereas 4 years ago, northeastern Pennsylvania was that tipping point in putting Donald Trump into the White House.
Yeah, coming up in just a few moments. And Steve, you're welcome to stick around for a few extra moments. We have Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence out of Michigan, Senator Sherrod Brown out of Ohio, and we also have from the Milwaukee Community Journal, Mikkel Halt, from the Toledo Journal in Ohio, Sandra Stewart, County News in North Carolina, Fran Ferrer, and Adelia, Dr. J. Carthen out of Mississippi, the Mississippi Link. Steve, I want you to also, because we know that, as we already discussed, Scranton has been a battleground, if you will. Biden, Trump, they've been fighting over it. What is it like there? I saw something on the national news about the signs for Biden and the signs for Trump. What's the feel there?
I live in what they call the hill section of Scranton, and it is a relatively middle-class part of town. There are some of the leftover mansions from the old robber baron coal boss days. Bobby Casey, the United States Senator, one of two in Pennsylvania, lives right down the street from me. And as of right now, most of the signs in the hill section are Biden-Harris signs. There is a group of Trump signs, but as you get out of town, as you get into the more rural part of Lackawanna County and Luzerne County, you will see more Donald Trump signs. But the signage is mostly Biden-Harris. I actually saw a Kanye West sign in Scranton today, which freaked me out. But there he was. Make America rap again. That's what it said.
No kidding.
Yeah. So this is still a predominantly white community. But with an aggressive press, particularly an aggressive black press, we're going to start to see more and more coverage of more and more leadership, and that scares that white male patriarchy to death. It scares the bad cops. It scares the bad politicians. It scares the bad citizens, and that's why it's so important that we all do what we do. We bring it out, we get in their face, and we let them know what's happening.
Steve Corbett, this is Michael or Mikkel Hall. Michael, okay, Michael, from out of one of the states that everyone is the president and Joe Biden wants to put in their back pocket tonight, from Wisconsin, a hotbed of activity. Michael, what's going on? What's the latest?
Well, at this point, we had an unprecedented number of absentee and early voting. Actually, 2/3 of the votes so far have been from absentee and early voting individuals. So it may be tomorrow, Wednesday, before we actually know the results. But I can tell you, I have never, and I've been through 10 presidential elections, I have never seen the fervor. I've never seen the expression of enthusiasm to get an individual out of office as I've seen. We've had more organizations, Black organizations, white organizations, multiracial organizations hitting doors. We had everything from the Black Panther Party in Milwaukee to Souls to the Polls, which is a religious organization. I've seen more advertising. I've seen more signs. I've seen more people knocking on doors than in any time in my adult life. So I'm very, very confident that Milwaukee will not go for Trump this time. You know, he won Milwaukee by 20, where he won Wisconsin by 23,000 votes 4 years ago, if you can imagine that. And you could actually look at Milwaukee as being the place where he actually earned the state, because we had a drop off of 40,000 Black voters from 8 to 16, and that really adversely affected the outcome of the election. But I don't see necessarily a great deal of enthusiasm for Biden, but everybody is anti-Trump. This is, I think, nationally, this is an election that's more about getting somebody out than getting somebody in. Yeah. Although there is a lot of enthusiasm for change and bringing back the America that Donald Trump stole for us 4 years ago.
Well, thanks for that, Michael. It's a privilege to welcome Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence out of Michigan, another major place that both candidates would love to put in their back pockets tonight. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. On a night like this, Congresswoman, and obviously you've run successfully for office. What's the feeling at 7:30 at night, election night?
Well, the feeling is hopeful. I'm nervous because 2016, we thought we closed the polls with a victory. So I'm not going to do my happy dance until the votes are counted. But one of the things that were really amazing, our early voting, it was phenomenal. And today, when I was at the polls walking around, what was so impressive were the number of young people who were first-time voters. And unlike Wisconsin, we were even worse. Donald Trump won Michigan by 10,000 votes. And we calculated that out to 2 votes per precinct. If every precinct had 2 more voters. And we had over 250 registered voters who did not vote. So our efforts, and like you heard in Wisconsin, I chose to vote at the polls. And I can tell you, every organization that you can think of were texting me, telling me that I could vote early and that did I need any help, encouraging me to vote, even today. Saying, this is election day. This is your time. Please vote. Please vote. So I don't think any stone was left unturned. And even today, Kamala Harris made 2 stops in Detroit. We know, and my district is the largest majority district in the state and the most Democratic. If we can turn out the votes in Detroit and in the Black community, we know that we can win this election. So I'm excited on that part, but I'm telling you, I got bated breath because I am so nervous that there's a possibility beyond belief, because I did not see Donald Trump winning Michigan before, but I don't see how he can win Michigan now. We did the work. We worked hard. In this campaign, the national one for Biden and Harris, they have shown up and they have been here. Where before we questioned why Hillary didn't come to Detroit. And we can't say that with this administration, because just on Sunday, we had Obama and Biden. And so the enthusiasm, even in this COVID environment, is one where people are not sitting at home. We're fed up. Instead of the excitement you see with Trump, you see that determination with the Democratic Party. We're focused. We're like, we got to stop this. We got to vote. Where they're like, yay, we love him. We love him. That's not our feeling right now.
Yeah, and it's also a privilege to welcome in Senator Sherrod Brown out of Ohio. We appreciate having him, and Congressman Hank Johnson. Absolute privilege to welcome you. Join us. We have journalist Steve Corbett out of Scranton, and from Milwaukee, Michael Holt. I keep saying Michael Holt. Senator, I want to hear what's going on in Ohio, another major battleground.
Yeah, our Trump won Ohio by 8 points. That surprised all of us, as Congresswoman Lawrence was surprised in Michigan. I love, though, what she just said about determination. And, these Trump people come to these rallies. I don't make that much of that. I do make a lot of the determination that I'm seeing throughout my state. In Cincinnati, a historically pretty Republican metro area, we're going to win. We're going to win by 80, 90,000 votes in that county. The turnout has been off the charts. The turnout in the African-American community has been exceptionally high. The turnout in suburbs have been exceptionally high. Those are going to be our voters. And, I see Hank Johnson, who really understands what's happening. And, we're seeing states like Georgia and Texas and Ohio, states that 3 months ago, nobody gave us much of a chance. They kind of wrote us off in Ohio because it was all Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. I'm glad the focus is those 3 states. That's what we need to win. But I really do see a potential electoral college landslide because of because the African Americans and people and suburban women have become so energized. And that's suburban Atlanta, it's suburban Detroit, it's suburban Cleveland, and the cities. And people recognize ultimately that Joe Biden is all about the dignity of work, all workers, whether you punch a clock or swipe a badge or work for tips, and Trump has betrayed workers. And you can see it especially with essential workers who are disproportionately people of color. There are more likely women than men. They're working in dangerous situations and then coming home with the anxiety of potentially exposing their families to this virus. Trump doesn't give a damn about those people. Biden does. And that's the difference in this election in my mind.
Senator Brown, it's so great to hear from you and see you. Congressman Hank Johnson, we've had you on our program before. We know that you've been working so hard. What's the latest there? And if you will, you heard the senator speak about his thoughts about a landslide, and that's surprising in a bit because everybody's kind of hesitant after 2016. What's the feeling in your neck of the woods?
Well, I tell you, to see my friends here, Senator Brown and my dear colleague Brenda Lawrence, just makes me smile and makes me look forward to getting back to Washington, D.C. and getting some good work done for the American people, because it's long overdue. And I believe that we're going to go back to Washington, D.C. with of course, House majority, which will be expanded. And I'm looking so forward to the Senate flipping away from Mitch McConnell and into the hands of Senate Democrats. And then I'm very optimistic about Joe Biden's chances of becoming the president. I agree with Senator Brown. I think there's a great possibility that it could be a landslide electoral college victory, in addition to a popular vote victory. So many states that are in play that were not thought about as being battleground states. States like Georgia, states like Texas. And I can tell you the activation of the voters here in Georgia has been so great. Stacy Abrams has been working tirelessly registering voters in Georgia just by her organization, Fair Fight Action, since 2018, responsible for registering over 800,000 new voters. We've had 1 million new voters on the roll since 2018, but 800,000 of those were from Fair Fight Action. And most of those voters were young, first-time voters. And so with the early turnout, with the early voting turnout in Georgia, which was phenomenal, I think that we stand a great chance of flipping Georgia for Donald Trump and electing 2 United States senators as Democrats from this state.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, could I comment on one thing?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Senator.
He said that, and particularly if he elects Reverend Warnock and Mr. Ossoff, Jonathan Ossoff, to the Senate. But when we take over the Senate, the first thing we're going to do is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I mean, the House has already passed it, named after the Congresswoman Lawrence and Congressman Johnson's colleague, his home state colleague, Mr. Johnson. But that's that. I think that there's going to be agreement among Senate and House Democrats and President Biden, knock on wood, but President Biden, that's the first order of business, is restoring the Voting Rights Act and undoing what the Supreme Court did when they did such damage to voting rights in this country. So that's the first thing to look forward to right out of the box, what we as progressives do to fix this country.
And Senator Brown, we have you with an alias, Connie Schultz.
My wife's a computer, so I don't care.
We
I also
go ahead, Congresswoman.
Yes, I wanted to bring up the huge Senate fight we had in Michigan. So we had an African American Republican who whose campaign slogan was "I'm a 2,000% with Trump," and he has been quite the nemesis in this campaign, and we've had to work hard. He has been at times a dead heat with Senator Peters, and I just want everyone to know that we have pulled out on that one. And I'm very proud to say that we're going to keep that Senate seat. And I know I got a call from almost every senator saying, Brenda, we can't lose Gary. We're trying to gain, so we can't lose any seats. I'm happy to report that.
Well, thanks for that report, Congresswoman. We do have joining us as well is Dr. J. Carthen. Dr. J. Carthen, Adelia, is I'm trying to say, from the Mississippi Link, and Fran Farah from the County News in North Carolina. I want to turn the remaining moments we have with our distinguished guests. I can't talk tonight, you guys. To the journalists, Adelia, Steve Corbett in Scranton, and Michael in Milwaukee. If you guys have questions for the Congresswoman, the Congressman, or the Senator, please, now is the time. And I think we can start with Adelia, and then we'll go around to Steve and Michael.
So let's talk about how Mike Espy is going to help you all out there in the Senate and in Congress. Let's start with that conversation.
Sure. I talked to two people in Mississippi in the last few days, and they're excited. There was an incumbent who is sort of, nobody really knows who she is. I won't even bother saying her name or and Mike Espy is running a terrific campaign. He raised about $3 million the last quarter. They've invested, they've put together something we haven't, the Democratic National Committee has not done in Mississippi in the past, a coordinated campaign to make sure we do get out the vote the way we know how to do it in Michigan and Ohio, states that are swing states that have built this. You know, Congresswoman Lawrence in Wayne County in Detroit, and as Congresswoman Fudge in Ohio and Congresswoman Beatty in Ohio have built with obviously way beyond the Black community, but our get out the vote structure. But I'm hearing good things in Mississippi that Espy is. It's a hard race. As you know, white voters don't vote for Democrats very often in Mississippi anymore. But I've heard there's all kinds of stuff happening in Mississippi Delta, and we're counting on you to deliver. So thanks for asking.
No problem.
Steve?
I'd like to ask Sherrod Brown how you plan to, if all things go the way many of us hope they go, to fill those big shoes Kamala Harris will leave in the United States Senate as she becomes the first woman vice president of the United States. And you used the word progressive. I was pleased to hear that. How do you plan to work with progressives, other progressives, to continue to push the agenda into a more progressive place to benefit more Americans who, in many ways, that good old boys club in the United States Senate have abandoned?
Well, it's a good question. First, it's not up to us to fill the vacancy in California to succeed Senator Harris as she becomes vice president. It's up to the governor of California. I know that Karen Bass's name is often mentioned. I thought Karen Bass was in the running to be vice president, actually. So I don't. It's not up to me to make that decision. It's up to none of us. It's up to the governor. But I think this is a progressive majority. I think Biden understands the great moral issues of our time that we need to deal with are structural racism and wealth inequality and climate change. And I think Democrats are on board, starting again with voting rights, but going much further than much more than that. We will look at, you can just look down at what Congressman Johnson and Congresswoman Lawrence have sent us from the House. Just look at the bills they've sent that Mitch McConnell's just put on a shelf to gather dust. And that's much of our agenda on the earned income, the child tax credit, a $3,000 child tax credit. Every low income person should get a $250 check every month, 12 months a year. We ought to do postal banking where people can, 25% of our country is unbanked. They don't have any relationship with a bank or a savings and loan or a credit union. we ought to use our postal service that they can set up banks, individual accounts, so they don't have to go to payday lenders. We should be looking at a lot of things like that. The House, as I said, has passed a whole lot of this stuff, and two of the members that have been supportive of them are on this show, and we move from there. But it's going to be a progressive Senate with a progressive president. We're going to get things done. We hope Republicans join us, but we're not going to let them play the games that Mitch McConnell played, just saying, yeah, well, we're going to raise the minimum wage to $15. I mean, things like that. We're going to fix the overtime rule that Donald Trump stole overtime pay from, in my state, about almost 100,000 people, almost the same number in Michigan and Georgia.
And before we go to Michael, two quick notes. 53% of the vote in Florida has been counted, I should say. And it's a 51 to 48% lead by Biden, or 50-49 now. It keeps changing. But in Ohio, though, which it should be of interest, Senator, right now, currently, I'm trying to see the amount counted, but I don't see that yet. But it's a pretty commanding lead early on for Joe Biden. Texas Metro News is reporting we spoke with, this is a message from the Texas Metro News. We spoke with Public Information Officer Alex Hamby of the Duncanville Police Department. He said, quote, there were no incidents at any of the polling sites in Duncanville, Texas. Everything went smoothly. He also said that the high school called and said there was no one voting and to tell people there were no lines. So I guess that's Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, I guess that counts as good news.
Well, the good news is that we were prepared because we received intel that the militia that you saw that showed up at our state capitol were going to be at our two majority cities, armed and standing outside the polls. And we did our, from our fraternities and sororities to the NAACP, to our churches, we had everyone on watch and we were ready for any foolishness. And I'm glad to report that I just left my campaign office and the sheriff reported we have about 15 more minutes, but we've had a good day. So I'm very grateful for that, because while we didn't want to have any confrontation, we were not playing. We were not going to have anyone interfere with our voting. We were ready for them.
Michael,
I think some of these Trump lunatics realize that it's a felony to mess with people at the polls.
Yes.
And they may love Donald Trump, but they don't want to go to prison.
Yeah.
Michael?
The vote's 27%.
I'd like to piggyback off what the Congresswoman just said. I've heard in at least a dozen cities, mayors and chiefs of police have put together contingency plans for violence,
Yes.
not necessarily at the polls, but tomorrow and the next day. I don't know if all of these are militia. We have a serious problem with militia in Wisconsin. We had militia in Kenosha and 2 people were killed. So the situation is one where I'm hearing a lot of organizations, Black organizations, who are talking about Black folks need to arm themselves because we're facing a civil war regardless of who wins. What are the plans on the national level to arrest this possibility and this fear that is just permeating throughout our society today?
Mm-hmm. And I want to bring in, if we can, Fran Farrer of the County News in North Carolina. Fran, are you with us? You have to unmute, Fran. Okay, while we wait for Fran, let's go back to, and I'm not sure, and I think I stepped on Michael. I think there was a question there, and I stepped on it. I apologize.
Yeah, I just really wanted to find out if there are any kind of national contingency plans for potential violence beyond what was put into place for the polls, and are the fears of many in the Black community that we're facing almost like a civil war because of all these militias popping up and racial polarization and the political polarization? What are contingency plans? How are we going to bring this country together?
Yeah, I think the FBI has had its hand on this issue as it has developed. And I think that as the FBI does what it does, which is to infiltrate these organizations and monitor their activities and then disrupt any threat that is about to manifest, I believe we will see more of that happening. The FBI has been under a tremendous assault by Donald Trump and by senators who aid and abet him, and people in the House of Representatives as well. But I believe with this election, we're going to affirm or reaffirm the fact that the FBI is an independent law enforcement organization that should not be subjected to the thumb of a president putting his thumb on the scale of justice and using the FBI to do his political will. We've got to reverse that kind of pressure that so far the FBI has withstood. I think we have a good man as the FBI director, and what we need to do is get Donald Trump out of office and then take out all of those political appointees in the Justice Department, including William Barr, who supervises the FBI. Getting rid of all of those people and then restoring the
I think we lost you, but we got two quick updates. The Associated Press is calling Virginia for Joe Biden, and they also calling Virginia for Senator Mark Warner. And also Vermont, we know, as we said earlier, it's been called for Joe Biden. And Florida is running neck and neck with 80% in. It's a virtual tie, 49.6% for Joe Biden and 49.5% for the president. So we welcome back Dr. Chavis, our president and CEO. We also welcome Fran. Fran, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes. I must get off, Mr. Brown, but thank you. And Dr. Chavez, nice to see you again.
It's so good to see. It's so good to see you, Senator. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Congressman Lawrence and Representative Johnson. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Senator. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt. Thanks.
Go in.
Are you?
Go ahead, Fran.
Go ahead, Fran.
My concerns are similar to all of yours, but in North Carolina, we have really been pushing in all of the 5 counties that we serve. We have been pushing early voting. Today, my son called me this evening. He said, "Mom, there's hardly anybody in line." And that's because our early voting lines have been awesome. They have been awesome. I took a picture early today before leaving home, and the crowd was so low. It was just not even a big crowd. But my concern right now is the aftermath. And my concern also is the extended date that we have in North Carolina in North Carolina for receiving all the votes. We have 9 extra days we know the evil that the Trump campaign has been putting forth. They have 9 days to be more corrupt than ever. And you can tell some of the advertisements, you could always tell that they're fake, But what bothers me most when I talk about the aftermath, I saw a video, of a Caucasian man. Obviously, he must have been Trump bound, but said there were 3 candidates, 1 didn't count, speaking of the independent. So there was Trump and Biden. And if Trump didn't win, Black lives don't matter. Now, if that did not frighten me, and this is not the only place, but of course, I live in Charlotte. My office is in Statesville. That's 2 different counties, and we cover 3 other counties. But my concern is how many people are thinking that way. And this is why some people are, as was said earlier, are thinking of, let me arm myself, let me be prepared. But we need to make sure that our police forces across all of our cities and all of our states are prepared for fair treatment and judgment of anyone.
Yeah, thanks, Fran. And with that said, before we go back to our president and CEO, Dr. Chavis, Denise Rolock Barnes of the Washington Informant is reporting that with Biden winning Indiana, he now has 11 electoral votes. Dr. Chavis, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank all of the members of the panel, and particularly our illustrious Congresswoman, our brother Congressman, and all of the member publishers who are there. And I've enjoyed listening to all the guests. But I want to answer Mike's question. I think the best way to overcome fear is for us to have a historic record turnout. I think that this election is going to put to rest that African Americans and other people of color and progressive whites are not going to be intimidated. Right. We're not going to be intimidated by these veiled threats. I think that our cities are going to take down those plywood boards, and we're going to go back to work. We're going to have a new administration. We're going to have a new Congress, a new Senate, a new White House, and in God's house, there's going to be shouting and rejoicing because this is not only the most consequential election of our lifetime, but this is about the future of America. And I think we have to not repeat the past. We have to learn from the past. Yeah. And I think, yes, those forces of oppression, those forces of white supremacy, those forces of violence, yes, they're there, but their numbers are small. I think that they have been disproportionately given much more play by Fox News and by other extreme media than in what they do. I just finished an interview with BBC. And the whole world is watching what's going on in America. Yes. And it's very interesting to me that even some of our colleagues in the UK were saying that they felt that Trump had made a lot of progress. So I listened to them and I asked them, what is the evidence of the progress? And they couldn't cite anything. And I think that for the last 4 years, it's been like a reality show. But I think the voting is the reality check. I think we're having a reality check in Virginia, a reality check in Vermont. There's a close reality check going on right now in Florida. And I think Michigan, I know Michigan is going to come through. Yes. And I know, and Georgia, oh man, if Georgia comes through, Brother Hank, I mean, I think that this is going to be a great
Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia. That's right. That's right. And, you know, I can hear Ray Charles say the midnight train to Georgia. So I want everybody not to lose hope, not to gain fear, and don't be lured into because they want a confrontation. I'm a disciple of Dr. King. We cannot play into the hands of the white supremacists. But that way, because then we'll be in a lose situation, they'll be in a win situation. The way we win is with our vote. The most powerful thing we have in our hand is not a gun, it's not a bullet, it's the ballot, it's the vote. And that is why there was such great effort to try to suppress the vote, because they knew of our potential power that's been expressed on this night and to do with the early voting that has been referenced. So I think that on behalf of the Black press of America and Black America, we're very proud. We're not going to be intimidated. I think John Lewis is turning restless in his grave tonight because his call for voting rights for everybody on his longevity has not been in vain.
Amen. With that said, Dr. Chavis, we're going to have to, I'm sorry, got to wrap it up. Steve Corbett out of Scranton, Michael Holt, Milwaukee. You're coming back, right, Michael?
Yes.
And Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, Congressman Johnson. Adelia, you're coming back as well. Fran, I know you're busy. We thank you so much. We'll see you in a few moments as we continue our live coverage. Thanks for joining us.
God bless.
Thank you. Stay safe.